everyone can see me and hear me, all that jazz. Happy Tuesday as I'm recording this. Hopefully everyone who was able to celebrate Labor Day had a great Labor Day. And if you didn't celebrate Labor Day, hopefully you just had a great Monday and a great weekend and all that stuff. if you caught the OSR Reddit Roundup for Friday, I want to say this is number 59, 58 or 59. I'll link to it. I didn't get to it. Didn't get to it. Just didn't have time before the stream starts. But it was really at the end of that stream we came upon. I forget. It might have been Brian in the chat said, "Hey, there's this free adventure we should take a look at called The Dark That Feasts." I found it in the OSR because someone I'm assuming the author posted it to the OSR Reddit. We checked it out. Looked pretty cool, but realized it was way too big. So since I was out of time during that stream, I thought, you know what? It's big. Someone has done all this work and basically giving it us for free. Let's instead of trying to rush through it, let's try to get through it proper. So here we are, and here's the cover again. I probably will skip some of the intro stuff. You can go back and watch that stream to get a hold of it. This is I guess this is a haunted house horror fantasy, I think, game. It's pretty much rules agnostic, system neutral, as they say right there. It looks like it has a couple of locations. There's a town. I think the town is called Morved, which we'll get into. There's a manor, and there's nasty things happening in that manor that as the adventurers, theoretically, you are tasked, or at least asked, or pushed, or prodded to stop. And it's called The Dark That Feasts. And it's by Words and Layout by Harry Menier. Maps by Dyson Logos. I'm trying to think. Okay, so did we... I don't think... Actually, I think I stopped here. So I think I stopped reading stuff after we got to system neutral. We do have a content warning, which I'll repeat just in case, so folks are aware that they need to pull over or pull out of the stream or the video. We have content warning. We have there will be implied violence against children, suicide, body horror, demonic possession, rats, insects, and human sacrifice. Okay. That said, on to the locations. We have Blackvine Manor. Ask any of the townsfolk the nearby town of Morved, and they'll tell you that place is cursed. They'll tell you that the vineyard and the manor are forever tainted by the black deeds of its former mistress, the Lady Arabella O'Dane, who, in a fit of madness, slaughtered the servants, her husband, and her own children before burying herself alive in the crypts beneath the house. Sunlight is loath to shine upon that gruesome and grisly place. Legions of crows and rats and teeming chitinous things are the only creatures that make their home there. And the grapes grow black and bulbous, like plague sores upon the gnarled and withered vines. So we got some very... Obviously, there's a sordid and sad history about the place. Lady Arabella O'Dane, a paladin of some renown, who built a fine manor house in the mountains where she knew the soil was good and the sun shone the right number of days each year, and around the house she planted a vineyard that cloaked the surrounding slopes in rambling lines of greenery. She named the estate Blackvine. She paid for the construction of a temple to her goddess in the nearby town, and hung her holy longsword, Vandrahas, above the altar. She married a local man, Thomas, and together they had 2 daughters, Marilka and Nasreen, and she loved them. Together they shared 8 short years of happiness and peace before the horror began. The Dark That Feasts. During one of the final battles of her long and storied years as a questing knight and slayer of monstrous things, a powerful evil spirit from the far side of the world attached itself to Lady Arabella. She believed it vanquished, but it endured. A many-mouthed demon made of blood and flies and putrefied meat bound together with writhing liquid shadow. Let me just read that again. A many-mouthed demon made of blood and flies and putrefied meat bound together with writhing liquid shadow. Well, that's quite the image right there. It hung upon her soul like a bloated, invisible tick. It was weak, but patient. It bided its time. It has many names in the tongues of hell, many grand titles among the spirits of air and night, and in the rotten places beneath the world. The ancient chronicles, books bound in flesh and holy iron, containing the mad scribblings of 1,000 tormented priests, speak of it only in parable and innuendo. They call it the Dark That Feasts. From the shadows, the Dark That Feast watched and waited as Lady Arabella let her guard drop, day by day, year by year. When it smelled the time was right, before Lady Arabella could recover her demon-killing blade, Vandrahas, from the temple reliquary, it struck. The Dark That Feast haunted Arabella, torturing her, possessed her, forced her to slaughter her own family and everyone else in the manor. Finally, it killed her too. Only Arabella's 6-year-old daughter, Marilka, survived. The prison beneath. Before her demon tormentor could finish its grim work, Lady Arabella, summoning every fiber of strength, walled herself up inside the crypts beneath the manor, sealing them both inside with powerful protective wards, and trapping the demon in her own body using an ancient artifact called the Aurum Shroud, a solid golden death mask that prevents souls from leaving and entering the body of its wearer. While it has prevented the demon's escape, Lady Arabella's own soul also remains trapped within the confines of Blackvine Manor. The vault of powerful divine wards is a working of the old magics, and only she, or one who is of her blood, acting under their own free volition, can open them again. Now, her spirit, faceless and mute behind its golden visor, haunts the halls of her accursed home alongside her murdered family and servants, tortured playthings of the demonic presence trapped inside with them. The Dark That Feast remains imprisoned beneath Blackvine Manor, but it is far from completely contained. All right, so a lot of really good flavor there. Children of the Blessed Vine. Over time, the roots of Lady Arabella's grapevines grew deeper into the hill, where they drank the demon's essence leaching from its prison into the soil. The area around the manor has become corrupted, forsaken, a large part of why those who know of it say the manor is cursed. Birds avoid it other than rasping Stygian crows who flock there in great numbers, and the rats and insects that remain are forever changed. They serve the Dark That Feasts now. So too does a cult that calls itself the Children of the Blessed Vine, which has taken root in the nearby town of Morvet. Slowly, little by little, the demon has cultivated its own flock of loyal followers who seek to free it once again. In secret, for most folk living in Morved are still good and decent, the Children of the Blessed Vine began using the winery at Blackvine Manor for their own ends. They cultivated the vines, turning the black, swollen fruit they bear into a dark, rich wine. Anyone who consumes this Stygian vintage is connected in some small way to the Dark That Feasts. The cultists drink it in vast quantities during their depraved rituals for power, and a glimpse of that which they hold to be divine. Walder Snide, the innkeeper of the Key and Cup in Morved, ensures many travelers who pass along the road are plagued by nightmarish visions, or even fits of demonic possession. Though its influence grows, the Dark That Feasts remains trapped beneath Blackvine Manor. Soon, however, this will change. The Last Odain. Arabella's daughter, Marilka Odain, survived the carnage by hiding inside a secret room inside the walls. In the morning, the villagers found her knelt over the body of her little sister, Nazreen, unable to recall the events of the preceding hours. She was taken in by Friar Kurlum at the local temple, who raised her as his own child in the hope she would not remember the night of the massacre. But her memories refused to stay buried. Marilka grew up a troubled child, and when she was 15, she ran away, although she occasionally sent letters to Friar Karlum, of whom she was very fond. Marilka led a hard, unfortunate life, as though forever stained by the darkness she encountered in the house where she was born. She died young, but not before she gave birth to a son and named him Marlowe. Orphaned at an early age, Marlowe, who his mother gave the last name Blickmar, grew up knowing nothing of his true name, his family, and its tragic past, although he remembered his mother's night terrors and the feeling of a dark presence just outside the corner of his eye. Now the prodigal heir to Blackvine, himself a promising adventurer, has returned to Morved, but for a reason even the last surviving Odain cannot himself understand. Krister says, "Gotta say, this sounds pretty awesome so far." Yep, it's got a very cool backdrop to it. The story of this family and the I guess that paladin's pretty good, pretty nice. Darkness Unleashed. It's been almost 3 decades since the Dark That Feasts was imprisoned beneath Blackvine. Soon, if all goes according to plan, it will be free once more. Using Marilka's letters to Friar Karlum, the Children of the Blessed Vine have tracked down her son, Marlowe Blickmar, a young adventurer with no idea about his family's past. Their agents slipped him a bottle of the Tainted Wine, and he dreamed of his mother, who told him that the answers to his family's identity and his inheritance lay beneath the manor overlooking the town of Morvet, a great golden treasure that, along with the grand estate, was his birthright. Though he only half remembers these dreams, and he instinctively knows that something about them, about his mother's face, and the voice felt wrong, Marlowe has found himself drawn back to Morvet. Little does he know that the invisible hand of the cult guides him inexorably towards the house and the vault beneath that may only be opened freely by one of Lady Arabella's own flesh and blood. Should he open the door and remove the golden mask from the corpse of his own grandmother, the dark that feasts shall be free again. And now we have an optional segment called A Family Reunion. If there is a human adventurer in the party who is unaware of their parentage, it can be interesting and dramatic to slowly uncover that they and Marlowe Blickmar share a mother, and therefore ordained blood. If you plan to include this detail, make sure that you include as many hints about the following as feels natural, or come up with your own clues. And these hints are: Marlowe remembers growing up with a half-sibling in the orphanage, but they were separated when they were young. The documents found in Grace Halsvana's study that detail the cult's plan to trick Marlowe into returning to Morvet also refer to another Odain. Include a few vague details that refer to the PC in question, but add that the cult remains unaware of who or where they are. When they look at or hold the magic sword Varahandras, the PC feels a calming presence and a sense of recognition, like the sword is happy to see them. And then finally, the PC found themselves called to Morvet by a series of dreams about their mother. Making a party member into a descendant of Lady Arabella, and thereby able to open the vault beneath the manor, can not only make the PCs feel like they are a more central part of the mystery, but remove some of the pressure to ensure that Marlowe accompanies the party to the manor. Once inside, the adventurer who is descended from Lady Arabella should be targeted by the dark that feasts and Lady Arabella's ghosts in the same way as Marlowe, lured or physically taken to the vault and driven away with increasing desperation, respectively. Also, should the adventure end with the dark that feasts imprisonment or destruction, the opportunity should arise for the last surviving Odain to take over Blackvine Manor, potentially turning into a base from which to have further adventures, or open a winery. There you go. So, and Krister likes the optional family reunion, and Taryn says Blickmar. Yeah, Blickmar. Oh, Marlowe Blickmar. Okay. We have gotten that, so a lot of a backstory of an optional bit if we want to make the PCs, the party, more involved. I could even see if you wanted to, just putting Marlowe aside and just having it be that player character, or you could even be two player characters. Certainly, maybe if you were running this as kind of a one-shot, I would think making one of the PCs Marlowe, for example, might be cool. Check with your party and your players. But yeah, that's nice. I like that they included that, because it's something that might feel obvious or not to a GM reading it, saying, "Oh, why not make one of the party members?" And so they thought of it, and they gave us some ways to do that. And this is lukewarm coffee for the working man. Okay, so we have some more adventure hooks. The Friar's Plea. If the party contains a cleric, paladin of a good, lawful deity. Several weeks ago, a letter arrived addressed to the head of your order, written in a shaky hand by a man named Friar Carlumen. He claimed that the small mountain town of Morvet had been plagued by a rash of ill omens, strange crops, dead and mutated animals behaving strangely, a darkness that hounds the townsfolk. The head of your order has sent you to investigate. Drunken Visions. And I kind of like that, hey, if your party has a cleric or paladin, use that. I always think that if you're going to have clerics and paladins, and they're going to be attached to orders and churches or some kind of temples, to use them. Part of being a paladin, at least in the OSR sense, was you were this sort of itinerant knight. And I think in the kind of homebrew cleric / paladin that I have in my game, I actually wrote that in so that's explicit. That, hey, while you can go and knock on one of your temples and they have to let you in and let you sleep and whatnot, by the same token, you can get food there, and it's a way of, if you want to just lead a kind of chase lifestyle when you're not adventuring, you can hang out at the temple, church, whatever. But by the same token, they're able to basically task you with things that you have to do. Drunken Visions. A night of overindulgence in a port city wine bar was followed by bizarre visions of death, decay, and a beautiful woman with an angular face dressed in white begging for aid. The dark that feast disguising itself as Lady Arabella. The details of the dream have faded, but you feel yourself your feet unconsciously pulling you along the road into the mountains towards a place called Morvet. So that would be, I'm guessing that is you were slipped some of the whatever they call the black, or the wine from the black vine wines. Another hook we have is the missing merchant. The Topaz Crown Shipping and Traders Union has lost track of one of its merchants. Cairo Molem, son of Baron Molem, or Mohem. Oh, I guess it's a typo. Cairo Mohem, son of Baron Mohem, one of the owners of the company, has been missing for almost a week. He was supposed to collect a shipment of wine from Morved, but hasn't returned. But Cairo is a known drunken gambler, and this isn't the first time this sort of thing has happened. Baron Mohem is prepared to pay dearly 1,000 gold pieces per party member for the safe and, above all, quiet return of his son and the missing merchandise. And then finally, the Alderman's letter. Arthman Halsvana, the alderman of Morved, sends a letter pleading for help as he suspects that witchcraft is behind a series of bizarre and ill omens in town, and he requires the services of those who know how to deal with such matters. And then we also get some rumors, rolling a 2d4. Some rumors are true, some rumors are false. If the person sharing the rumor is a cult member, roll 1d4. Okay, that's interesting. So you sometimes roll 1d4. How do you know if the person sharing it is a cult member? I'm not sure. I guess we'll have to see how this comes up. I'm not sure if we're supposed to read these, if we're just supposed to hand out some of these now, or I'm guessing maybe the way this is set up is we're supposed to wait until the PCs interact with somebody and then roll for the rumor. And if the person they're interacting with is a cult member, they'll just roll for the first half of the table. And then if the person is a non-cult member, then you're going to roll 2d4. And of course, that means that you can only get rumor 1 if you are talking to a cult member, and you can only get rumors 5, 6, 7, 8 if you're talking to a non-cult member. I'll just read one of these. This is the one that is a cult-only rumor. Poor Piotr Vanch, the farmer. His son was such a clumsy boy. He knocked over an oil lamp in the night, and the whole family succumbed to the flames before they woke. So I'm guessing that's false, though it doesn't say so. Or maybe, I guess it's ones that are bolded are true. I see. So that one was false. The second one's false. The third one is true. The best wine and the cheapest beds in Morved are at the Key and Cup. That's true. And that one, cult members will tell you. They'll also tell you to stay away from Blackvine Manor. That place is cursed by the vengeful gods who made its lady go mad and slaughter her entire family. She haunts the halls to this day, hungry for the blood of mortal folk. So it's kind of partly true, mostly false. So you got those. When there's some more rumors, we get to Morved, the town. Nice little town map here. I like that the important things are highlighted very clearly. So we have one major road that goes into it, kind of splits into a T. We don't know what's going to the east because it's not related to the adventure, but we do know that the road that leads to the north is going on to Blackvine Manor. There's the Key and Cup, the tavern, and maybe, I guess, inn. There's a general store. There's the Temple of Dojdola. Here we have the main streets. There's a ruined house, the alderman's house, the wine merchant, and the blighted vineyard. Nestled in the shadow of the mountains, surrounded by old woods and rotting hills, blanketed with orchards and vineyards, Morved might, in better days, have been picturesque. A few dozen whitewashed stone buildings and wooden farmhouses stand amid patches of greenery. Oak trees, ash, alder, and pine that throw patches of dappled shade along the narrow lanes. The sizable two-story inn at the northern end of town, as well as most of the businesses on the main street, suggest that this place once saw a good deal more trade and visitors than it does now. A darkness hangs over Morved like a burial shroud. You could see it on the faces of the locals, in their furtive glances, their hurried gaits. They startle easily, jumping at shadows, paranoid and mistrustful. Terrence says, as a person who grew up in a fundamentalist church, cult members being really low info rings true. Fair enough, Terrence. Now we get some more about the cult. Roughly 1 in 6 of the townsfolk are members of the cult. This includes Walther Snide, the innkeeper of the Key and Cup, Pavel, the cook at the Key and Cup, Thargol, the wine merchant, and Graces Halsvana, the notary and wife of the alderman. All right, so those are the kind of the key members that we could, in other circumstances, you could just roll 1 in 6 on any particular person to see if they are a cult member. And there's a nice thing going on because controlling, which makes sense just from a conspiracy thing and what they're trying to do. They want to, if you're gonna be, the part of your plan is getting people hopped up on this wine, and presumably will just make them either just succumb outright, I guess, to serving the demon or the devil or whatever it is, the dark that feasts, or at least making them prone to it, susceptible to it. controlling the tavern, which is going to be doling out wine to the locals, great thing. And then the wine merchant, so you can spread it out kind of far and wide along the countryside, are certainly the two will be very much the keys to this kind of plan. And then having somebody who has the ear of the head person in charge, the alderman, also makes a lot of sense. So those are good pickups by the cult. Those are good draft picks. Good draft picks there. The Children of the Blessed Vine operate a hideout, temple, and winery up at Black Vine Manor. In town, they operate out of the cellar beneath the Key and Cup over there, where they're holding a cache of tainted wine and the possessed merchant, Kiro Molem. Somewhere along the line. So maybe the father, when they said Duke Mohem, that's the typo. Maybe it's supposed to be Molem. Either way. All right, so that's good. The Tainted Wine. Anyone who drinks the cult's wine, a dark red, robust vintage with notes of blackberries and camphorwood, is connected to the dark that feasts. The more wine consumed in the space of a week, the greater the demon's hold over them. And there we have, I'm guessing this is an escalating tiers of your contact via the wine. If you just have a glass or two, you're going to have strange, hyper-vivid dreams of violence, maggots, many gaping mouths, offering the things you want most in the world. Or I should say, many gaping mouths offering the things you want most in the world. If you drink a whole bottle, you have creeping paranoia and dread and night sweats. If you have a night of heavy drinking, you're going to get hallucinations, uncontrolled emotions, violent outbursts. If you a week of indulgence would mean manifestations of demonic power, speaking in tongues, floating above the bed at night, things spontaneously catching fire near them. And then if it's more than a month, you've got full-on demonic possession. Bodies suffuse with demonic energy and become a magnet for dark entities. Something finds them and takes control. I think these are great. The only thing I would like is that presumably, and I think as a GM, I'd love to have a lot of fun with this when they end up at the wine merchant or the cup and the key and cup, is I'd like to have some mechanical things of how I do this when the party, and oftentimes in adventures in these kinds of games, people will go to the tavern and I get my drink on, right? Well, we show up and whoever the big burly fighter goes to get their drink on. I'd like to know kind of like, okay, well, I could think that maybe save versus death, I think would be a good saving throw for the wine, and then maybe have some things, how that enters into it. It becomes more obvious what to do later on, but I would think that maybe if you get to a bottle, if you drink a bottle of this stuff, then for some amount of time, maybe rolling a save, that when you sleep, because of the night sweats and the creeping paranoia and dread, you don't heal, you don't get anything back. So if you came back to town after a foray at the manor, but you don't really know, you still don't know all the connections going on, or you show up here and you've been wounded or hurt through some other event, you get to that point, you're not getting any healing. A glass or two, I might just leave as just being kind of flavor, right? And then I want to know, okay, night of heavy drinking, save at -2 or whatever. Okay, now certain conditions come up, you got to roll save or you have a violent outburst, right? Because those, I think, at least up to that one, a night of heavy drinking, I think I could foresee a player character getting into. If they spend a week just, I don't know, and maybe I'd like to know about a week of indulgence. What does that mean? Is that 5 out of 7 nights you have heavy drinking? I don't know. Like maybe I want to know, but I would imagine, for the most part, the party is not going to get as far as a week of indulgence. But even then, it might be good to know, what does that mean? How many drinks is that a night? What are they doing? And you could also have these things kind of escalating, because I could also see after the night of heavy drinking, when you're offered more wine, you're less able to resist it, even though you know it's wrong. So once you kind of start rolling down that path, there's some way where you could see how somebody could go from a night of heavy drinking to a week of indulgence. Because you would imagine you drink the stuff for a night and you're having violent outbursts and stuff, you're going to say, hey man, I don't want any more. So why would you then go in and drink a whole bunch more? But if there was something saying, hey, if somebody offers it to you after you've had a night of heavy drinking, if you failed that save, that now you have to make another save or you find yourself drinking it again, would explain somewhat how that slope could tail off. And then it just adds to more interesting things, especially when you marry these kinds of effects with potentially having one of the heirs, the O'Dane, that bloodline in your party, and then how that works and what might they do. So I might have liked a little bit more there. Of course, we can write it up ourselves, but it seems like that would have been a nice thing to flesh out a little bit more in terms of what's going on, because it seems like this wine's pretty darn important. Terrence says, roll the save versus crunk. Yeah, pretty much. Oh, and there is one more thing. Anyone with tainted wine in their system must save versus paralysis to enter holy ground, and again on each subsequent turn to stave off nausea and vomiting. And that's another reason why, now granted, the only holy ground here, I'm guessing, is this Temple of Dojdola. So it's not far away, but who knows if they would make that trek, having it in their system. But that's where I was like, no, well, how long is it in your system? I might just say a day to make it easy until the next long rest, however you want to do that. And then I do like that. But then you'd have to imagine, okay, like once this happens, why would you ever go back to drink more? And therefore, I'd like that. The more you drink, the more you're kind of susceptible to drinking more mechanically. Really, for the player characters. For NPCs, who cares? I'm not going to read all these different things, but I like the portraits we have here, the different people. There's Main Street. We got the general store. We got the Temple of Dola. There's that burned farmhouse. We actually read the rumor about, and that belonged to Peter Vosh, or Piotr Vosh, a farmer who succumbed to demonic possession. And then that, if we remember, one of the effects could have been burning things being lit on fire in your presence, so it burned down his house. We have the general store. They sell most basic goods. You can roll a 4 and 6 chance of anything on the equipment list, but the quality is poor and the markup is high. And we have the shopkeeper, Gorman Iderman, Gormak Iderman. Gruff, suspicious of anyone who walks through his doors. At the Temple of Dojdola, we've got the Sister Olena, the nun. Morved's new priest, Sister Olena, only arrived a few weeks ago after Friar Korlum left town without warning. And she's got some stats. We don't have stats for Gormak, though Gormak does know that the shadow of evil has fallen over the town. So he'll tell you about it, but he's also suspicious of everyone. So gotta play with that suspicion. I would say, just as a note, call this a Todd or GM note, don't play this guy as too suspicious. Because one, I feel like that's a common trope with NPCs. Everyone that walks to the store, they're looking at all squinty-eyed and not trusting. And then if you play that up too much, then he's got information that you want to try to, I think you want to be more open about communicating in these things. Especially once he recognizes they're from outside the town. Maybe he wants to warn them. Yeah, he's suspicious, but these are outsiders. Other outsiders presumably have gone missing or come through and wandered up to the manor and disappeared. Something's bad. So you might feel like, even though he's suspicious, that, hey, I want to, especially if they seem okay, let me tell them, warn them about these things, right? Don't play it like he's so suspicious he's going to be tight-lipped. Again, I think it's overly used with NPCs, and then it creates a barrier. You want the party to have these. You want to have them these clues, and even though the stuff about knows the shadow of evil isn't even really a clue, it's just more flavor. But you want to communicate that. It's part of the setting the scene, so to speak. So don't hide it away because, oh, this guy's too suspicious. He wouldn't tell them any of that. Well, maybe he would. So as back to Sister Olena, she also knows something's very wrong. She suspects Walter Snide. And then she's the Alderman's affliction. Ever since Arthman Hasvana started showing signs of demonic possession, Sister Olena has visited the Alderman's house nightly to pray and consecrate the ground. Arthman's episodes are getting worse, and his wife, Grace's Hasvana, has forbidden her from returning to the house, lest her quote-unquote clumsy ministrations bring further harm to her husband. So we can get a sense there, if we're able to talk to her, that something may not be right with Grace's. Why would she be stopping this person from coming? Let's see, we get some faded murals on the wall. I like the bolding here and stuff to kind of call out details. There's a font. It can be used to create some vials of holy water, 1d6 per day. And then we can see there's in her mural, we get a look at that sword, Vandrahas. Sister Olena will claim the original was stolen before her time, but she actually keeps it hidden in case of dire emergency. Oh, I see. That's the blade itself. Oh, I see. Okay, so I wasn't reading. It's not the mural that's a copy. It's the wooden-bladed replica that sits. So there's a replica of the sword, but actually Lady Olena has it. She will bring it to the Alderman's exorcism. She doesn't know how to wield it properly, but is still reluctant to entrust the blade to anyone else. So that could be a nice moment. I'm presuming maybe at the exorcism or somewhere where you can, the PC or maybe Marlowe is revealed, and then they get the sword. We get a map of the Key and Cup. On the outside, there's grapevines and creeping ivy. There's a broken window on the second floor. We've got the bar. There are 1d6 plus 2 cultists, 2 and 6 chance that Thargol, the wine merchant, who is an evil cleric, is here preparing to lead a sermon in the cellar. We get Walder Snide, the innkeeper, another nice portrait. He's a cultist. He's got a ring of keys. And then we have the menu. You can get red wine, mead, a meat platter, goat stew, pickled vegetables, and you can also get a guest room. And here we have Marlowe Blickmar, heir to Blackvine Manor. I guess we find him at the bar. Recruiting the PCs, Marlowe is coming around to the idea of a hidden treasure vault beneath his family's estate, i.e. he's been there, he's been drinking that wine, and it's starting to get the seeds, kind of like Inception. The seeds are being planted. He will offer to bring the PCs along, offering them full shares in the venture. So the seeds are being planted. Now he might actually be looking for people to try to get to this treasure and try to recruit the PCs, which is interesting because the PCs presumably have heard different stories. So then you can have some nice moments there. Terrence says they like the layout art-wise. Yeah, it's all, I think, public domain or free art, but yeah, they do a nice job. I do like the not only the little portraits here, but the framing with the sort of gothic. I don't know if you know the gothic sort of. I'm not sure. Just the ornate frames around the portraits are nice. Simple fonts. I like the bolding and things. Nice call outs. I think there are a couple spots where there's some inconsistency. I think just due to the lack of editing. That someone coming through, I just know some things not bolded where I think they needed to be, but ultimately, it's a really nice, clean, easy to read, always like things that are easy to scan through, not just because I'm on the stream and I might need to scan through it, but just in terms of when you're playing the game, you don't necessarily need to read everything, but you might need to scan, for instance, oh, they're in the bar, let me scan through the bar area, and then you can see, oh, cultist, 1d6+2, bold, boom, something's happening, what do they have weapons on them? Okay, dagger, boom. You can just find it all fairly neatly, which I appreciate. Kitchen strong boss, Pavel the cook, also a cultist. Pavel has taken to auto-cannibalism in his fits of adulation dedicated to the Dark Death Feasts. There are large chunks missing from his torso, and his right hand is heavily bandaged around an amputated little finger. An accident! My knife slipped! Now get out! That's pretty gross. You got storeroom. Beds, they have a trapdoor, we have some guest rooms. There are 9 guest rooms. Under the bed in every guest room is a small leather bag filled with rosemary and mandragora root. Anyone who sleeps near one is beset by horrible nightmares and visions of the Dark Death Feast, but are almost impossible to awaken. That's a nice touch. And it also rewards the players from looking under the beds. And it gives them another angle. If you have some PCs who drank the wine and get some nightmares, and some PCs who didn't, and the ones who didn't also get the nightmares, it's a little bit of a red herring as to, hey, well, it can't be the wine because I didn't drink the wine. I had nightmares. But if they do a little digging around, they'll find those guests, those hex bags. There might be, 1d4+1 other guests that are there in the inn staying along, and that's not, or one of them. Okay, so at least one of those is Marlowe Blickmar. So you can roll at minimum 2 guests, and anything you roll, one of those, however many guests you roll, is Marlowe. Oh, the rest are cultists. Okay. There's the possessed merchant's room. This is where Cairo Molem succumbed to demonic possession. He's now locked up in a cell in a different area. Brian Smith, you're late. But you can always zip back to the beginning. 'Cause, I think, Brian Smith, you were the one that even put us onto this adventure. So for shame on not being here promptly on time. Then there's Walder's room. It's got a wardrobe, a bookshelf, a desk with some stuff. A painting, Saint Harvesnia at the moment of her martyrdom. Behind the picture is a wall safe. Did they have wall safes back in the day? Got a holy symbol of Dojdola that belonged to Friar Colum. And also an ornate silver dagger. Ooh, it's a +1. There's some dried blood upon the blade. Perhaps we're learning what happened to Friar Colum. There's the root cellar, some jars. 1 in 6 chance any jar open will be filled with human liver, kidney, or heart, cut out of the dead friar in Area 9. Gross. So we get some muffled thumping. There's a cistern. Cold, dark water, impossible to tell how deep. Large, undefined shapes float or drift like logs or crocodiles in the water. Wet-aged meat. Large haunches of beef, goat, and lamb, aging in sealed leather cocoons. One is bigger than the rest. Inside, there's the half-eaten body of Friar Carloom. Yuck. The wine store, the salting and pickling room, and there's a guard post / shrine with some guards and more cultists. A cell door. Inside is Cairo Molem. So, boy, if you go investigating that, you're going to get a lot of creepy stuff. Demonic vessel. Did we see? Did I miss? Where's the demonic vessel? Golden candlestick. 3 guards. Did I miss the demonic vessel? I might have missed it, but we're just going to go forward. I don't have time to go back. Mundane. This demonic vessel has mundane damage resistance. Can be turned by a cleric as though undead. Oh, I see. I think these are maybe the creatures. So these are maybe people who have been totally possessed. They, see, all demons have a power R2 in addition to being able to levitate and crawl along walls and ceilings as though they are flat ground. So kind of cool if you wanted to pull out your, what is it? Your Dracula, the Gary Oldman Dracula or some of those where they have, you know, him. I think he does it once, and then he's got his those succubi that are or succuba that are working for him also kind of chitter along the ceiling and stuff. You can have these guys do the same thing, and they could potentially also have telekinesis. They could do a dark reading, which forces someone to reveal their most shameful secret, hypnotic eyes, or unholy fire. Corpse pickles. Yep. Yum. I wonder if they serve those up at the bar. Have a corpse pickle with your black wine or blighted wine. I don't know, whatever we would call it. A large stone building. So this is the blighted vineyard. Presuming at some point you've moved on out of town up towards the vineyard, hopefully with Marlowe in tow or leading the way. A large stone building hemmed in by dead fields. The crop is rotten, infested with writhing maggots and clouds of buzzing, biting flies. Yuck. Barlandieri, the vintner, refused to sell his reserves to Thargol, the wine merchant, and the next day, all that was left in over 100 casks was dark, foul-smelling sludge. Oh, I see. So this is the one that's in town. Sorry, I had that wrong. So this is, we're just going to cycle back. This is that blighted vineyard that's in the southern part of the town. It's not Black Vine Manor, but that's, so we know that, you know, they were up to no good, the cultists. Barlandieri, the vintner, is kind, tired eyes full of sadness, a soft, slow voice, weather-beaten skin, tanned but browned by the sun, and deeply lined with worry. And then he doesn't get any stats or anything, but that's just about it. I guess he doesn't really have any stats because he's getting ready to leave with his 2 sons, Leandro and Nicholas. And they're selling the vineyard for a pittance to Thargol. So he wouldn't give it away. He wouldn't give it to Thargol. Thargol then just, you know, he ruined it, and now he's getting it for almost nothing. Shadow Theory says this book looks incredible, especially for a free adventure. Absolutely, and I'll dig out the link and put it in the show description and elsewhere. I just didn't have a chance to find it, but you can also probably search for it on the OSR subreddit, so r/r/OSR. I think if you also check last week's Reddit Roundup, I put the link in the chat. I don't think I got it into the show description there either, but yes, it is look really cool. And Terrence says, I guess pickled pig's feet counts as a corpse pickle, so I have eaten corpse pickles. Never had pickled pig's feet. Just doesn't look good to me. I'm not into the pig's feet. I'm not that much into I like some pork stuff, and especially after, you know, basically meeting my wife, who's, you know, Asian American, and there's a lot of pork dishes and kind of Chinese and other Asian cuisines. I definitely got more into it, but I was usually like kind of prior to that, I was mostly a bacon, and that's about it. Bacon and maybe some pork belly, which is essentially bacon cut a different way, was pretty much all I had for pork, but definitely not a pig's feet person. Okay, so now this, I guess, is an event, an exorcism at Halsvana House. We do get some more about Thargol being mean and belligerent and drunk. He has been coordinating the production of wine at the manor, the plan to distribute wine in the area where Marlowe O'Dane was suspected to be, and dosing him with tainted vintage so that his master could lure the young man to town. He leads vile, depraved rituals drenched in wine, blood, and other bodily fluids in the cellar beneath the cup and key. All very true. Then we get the wine merchant's house. Okay, that's fine. The alderman's house. Fine stone farmhouse. Every window is covered with thick, dark drapes. On the varnished oak door hangs a bundle of herbs, laurel, rosemary, and mandragora root, tied together with a twine, put up by Grace's Halsvana. I'd also want to say that they don't really note it here, but I'd want to make sure if you have a druid, maybe a cleric, somebody who's got in their background or something about maybe a ranger, about herbs, I'd want to give them a chance to suss some of this out. So we know from the inn that this stuff leads to nightmares and things. It has some connection with, I'm guessing through that mandragora root, with the dark that feasts. So use that. If you're running this and your party comes across that bundle of herbs, they might not find it underneath their beds, or they might, and they might find it here. It gives some of the allowance, especially to start to do it, that either just generally it doesn't smell right, it smells horrible. I don't know, something about it. Maybe I'd look up mandragora root to find out some more about it, because I'm guessing because laurel and rosemary are generally seen as good things. Maybe they're there to kind of cloak the mandragora root in a sense. So if they dig into there, find it. And of course, if you have somebody with any kind of herbal knowledge in their background or anything, depending on your system's whatever skill, give them that information, because it'll help lead them along in terms of the mystery. Not that this mystery is very deep seated. It's not played to be very hard to suss out, but still, the more, as they said in G.I. Joe, or was it G.I. Joe or Transformers? Maybe it's Transformers. The more you know. Give them more. All right, so we got inside. It's hot. Of course it's hot because they've covered everything in heavy drapes. There's the bedroom. Alderman Arthman Halsvana is confined to their bed. Grace's Halsvana is a cult member. We knew that from before, or whether we were told that already. There's the kitchen, the study. Well, there are let's see, if you're able to go through some stuff, we'll find that we're tracing the movements of Marilka O'Dane. We got some section here. We got two portraits, one of Arthman Halsvana, the alderman. He's been being steadily supplied with tainted wine administered by his wife, but he started to grow suspicious of his wife and several other townsfolk before he fell ill. But he was struck down before he could do more than send a letter or two to friends in far-off towns. Now he is in the grip of the dark that feasts. And then Grace Savannah is a cultist. She's been sabotaging Sister Olena. Terran says, knowing maybe half the battle, but the other half is always stabbing. Stabbing, yeah, slamming, banging things with heavy objects, pretty much. Now on to the exorcism. Sister Olena has tried and failed several times to exorcise the entity possessing the alderman. Each time she returns, it seems it has only grown stronger. She plans to enlist the aid of any cleric or paladin she can to make one final attempt. An ancient and powerful act of deliverance ministry intended to sanctify a person or place over the course of a long and torturous night. The ritual demands the constant recitation of powerful prayers by Sister Olena and the aid of the PCs, as the three rites are trials that she cannot complete alone. The alderman and Sister Olena must be protected she performs three sacred rites: the rite of water, the rite of air, and the rite of fire. Each step in the ritual has a 1 in 6 chance of success, which is increased by 1 in 6 when, and here are the things that will help increase our chances for success. Each successful element of the ritual is observed, +1 for each element. If a cleric, druid, or paladin PC successfully aids the ritual, and that requires a successful wisdom check, +1 for each success, -1 for each failure. And then finally, the 4 chalk runes at the cardinal points of the house and the chalk circle around the alderman's bed remain unbroken. If 2 or more of the 3 rites succeed and the PC survive to complete the ritual, the alderman's soul is freed from the dark that feasts. If 2 or more of the rites fail, the dark that feasts claims the alderman's soul forever. So I like the fact that we're going to have these rituals. I don't know if I would have all these to be dice related. I think I would just give them, if you can have, because some of these, and we'll see what the rituals are going to do, but we have, okay, you have element, each successful element of the ritual. So there's however many elements of the rituals we have to do. And the reason why I would give them this stuff kind of for free, in a sense, is that if you have the cleric, let's say you have the cleric, druid, or paladin who's aiding the ritual, instead of making them roll a wisdom check, I would just have them roll. And I don't even know if I'd even have wisdom part of it. Just say, okay, you're helping out. That's +1. Maybe you give them, if they have a wisdom bonus above +1, that they can add more to it. I don't know, but I just kind of like that, because why I say that is, let's say you have your party of 4 or 5, however many PCs. Any PC cleric druid that is aiding the ritual is then taken off the board. So they can't do anything because they have to be aiding the ritual. So all they can do is do that aid action. So I don't need to then add another, hey, I'm going to take you off the board, and now I'm going to have you potentially roll a die. And then in some cases you might be harming, but you still can't do anything. I would just say, look, +1. You're aiding because you can't help with whatever shenanigans are going to happen during this particular part of the ritual. Since you're kind of off that board, I'm going to give you a +1. I'm not going to potentially, and essentially you could have a double penalty. You could roll poorly on your wisdom check and end up being like -2. Oh gosh. And then you can't do anything else. So then you're not, the rest of the party has to do without you. So I think that's too many. Just say, hey, you're helping. That's +1. And then, because like if you're aiding the ritual, then you can't be running around making sure that no one's scratching off the chalk runes. So I would just make it easy. Maybe even make it +2. I don't know. Something reasonable, since not having that PC to do actions, to do other sorts of rituals is kind of a big ask. The cult will intervene themselves if the ritual looks as though it has a chance of succeeding. There is a 2 in 6 chance that the cultists attack the house at the beginning of each rite. If the cultists do not attack during the rite, they are waiting outside the house when the PCs emerge. 2d6 cultists, led by Thargol, wearing black hooded robes, are let into the house by Graces. Graces will try everything she can to derail and undermine the ritual. She will try to refuse Sister Olenna entry and cast doubt on her abilities, claiming her husband has only gotten worse since her clumsy and misguided attempts began. She will try to disrupt the exorcism whenever possible, erasing holy markings, knocking over candles, and generally getting underfoot. And then, so I don't remember, though, I probably just skipped over it. So presumably if they go to Sister Olenna, or maybe Sister Olenna might come to them to say, hey, you guys look strong and tough and not under the thumb of whatever's happening here, so please would you help me? And then you can help. And then, so we got about the stuff. So the rite of water. For the first ritual to succeed, the rite demands the blood of a white rooster spilled in a prayer bowl and mixed with quicksilver, a personally significant item from a lawful aligned character, an item of value or power given freely by a chaotic or neutral aligned character. The blood, quicksilver, and items warp, burn, and smoke in the prayer bowls, filling the air with acrid fumes. So this is interesting also because they're listing all this stuff here, but I think that, okay, you're going to do this ritual. We need these things. I don't think if I'm Sister Olenna, I'm waiting till I'm in the middle of speaking the words to suddenly turn around and say, I need this stuff. I'm going to be prepping this stuff beforehand. I think it's great if the party, if the party makeup allows to say, okay, ask one of the party members who's a lawful alignment to hand over something personally significant, and then an item of value or power given by freely chaotic or neutral aligned character that's interesting could come from the party. Maybe no one else will give it. Maybe no one else has those things. But I definitely think they're going to have the rooster with them, and they're going to have the prayer bowl, and they're going to have the quicksilver. Of course, then you could try to have maybe Graces knock over that stuff to try to kill that part of the ritual. But I would say I would set this up to, she's going to ask for these things beforehand. Like you would have that stuff. Okay, you've been waiting, trying to get into this ritual. You're not going to wait and then do it. But I would also put the onus on the characters. It's like, no, I need this stuff from you guys. No one else either has this stuff. No one else does it. Everyone, whatever. So I would definitely have that. And then, let's see. And then the if this works, or I guess as this is happening, the Dark That Feast is going to laugh and slam doors and windows and hurl objects around the room. Everyone takes 2d4 damage from hurled objects. You can save for half. That could be tough. Whoops. The Rite of Air. Ritual elements. This one has... well, let's see. What does it have? Ritual elements. Light a single candle by the element's bed, extinguishing all the others. Outside the house, the wind's going to rise. The Dark That Feast is going to call out to its fellow demons for aid. This one will succeed if the 4 sacred signs drawn in chalk above the front door, in the kitchen, in the bedroom, and in the study must not be destroyed. The chalk circle around the alderman's bed must not be broken, and the candle by the alderman's bed must remain alight. And it lasts for 1d6 plus 6 rounds. That's a lot. So And this is why, again, I would give a fairly good bonus to anybody who's going to be aiding in the ritual, because someone's got to go to these different places. Someone's got to either run around the house, or you have to station somebody at the front door, at the kitchen, in the bedroom, and the study. So that's 4 places. And then I would probably like a little bit more about where these things are going. Is it just, so for instance, if you went through the first rite and Grace's was a nuisance, and the party decides, which I could totally see it saying, hey, you know what? F this noise of this woman. Before you start the next ritual, we are tying her up. Like, does that just kind of obviate all this stuff? What does that do? Like, it'd be nice to know a little bit of that. Like, okay, if they catch Grace's and tie her up, do other people come busting in? What's going on? And then, what are the odds of different things happening? Okay, so if you have 2 people and you put one on the first floor, one on the second floor, does that change it? If you put someone in every room, how does it change it? But you have a lot of things going on. So anybody that says, hey, if you have 5 PCs and you're doing these other things, and then you're going to take 1 or 2 off the board just to aid, again, it just reinforces my idea that you want to make that worthwhile. The first round, 1d4 dark spirits enter the house. They attack anyone they find, except for Graces and the Alderman, and they try to disrupt the ritual, although they are easily distracted by opportunities to inflict fear and destruction. I also wonder, how do the spirits, are the spirits able to kind of touch things? Or are they just, so I think of spirits, they could be more distractions, but are they able to physically touch things and move it and like scratch out the rooms? Or are they meant to distract and then somebody else comes in? Let's see, again, we do have a sidebar of sorts here with the stats for the dark spirits. So we can roll for what form they are with a feature, how they move, and then their power. So telekinesis, that would obviously help with scratching stuff out. Illusory horrors, they can immolate things, also might help. They can glamour. I think glamour's with 2 M's, but I'm not sure. They can imitate, or they can be invisible. And then the final rite is one of fire. Ritual elements. The Dark That Feasts will choose the person who opposes it that it believes is most vulnerable and make an offer of what it thinks they want most. Power, the return of a loved one. Wealth, knowledge, destruction of an enemy. Eternal life. For the third rite to succeed, that offer must be refused. It's up to the GM whether this decision is entirely up to the player or requires a saving throw of some kind. I wouldn't use the saving throw. I mean, it's the one that I guess I'm torn. I can see where they're saying, hey, I'm glad they made it kind of like you can if you want to. It's one of those things that, okay, you want to make it interesting. You want to make it, there be intrigue and kind of tension. So if they make the offer and the player characters, unless, I don't know, maybe if you're playing a campaign and you could really find something this player character or the player really, really wants and throw it out there, chances are they're just going to say no because they know that's what they're supposed to do. So you think, oh, okay, well, this is kind of a non-starter in terms of it being tense, because they're just going to say no, you're not going to do that. So have them roll a save. But then you have that kind of agency problem where the player's like, I don't want to do this. I'm telling them no, and you're like, oh, roll the save. Oh, you told them yes, which is also, I think, just kind of bad form and a little bit cheesy. So while I understand where a GM might be tempted to do that because, ooh, maybe they will say yes. And depending on how the other rituals have gone, maybe you need to get 2 out of the 3. One succeeded and 1 failed. So now it comes down to the rite of fire. And then it's like, they're just going to say no. I still would just say if they say no, they say no. And that's fine. I mean, it's not like this is the determinant of the whole adventure. And 2, I don't want to do it. Those are the kind of things I think where you start to step on, impinge on someone's agency or kind of apply a role. And it's just kind of like, yeah, you could, but do you really want to? I just wouldn't. There are probably some players out there you could tempt them with. Listen, you can get I'll give you a Vorpal sword and all this stuff you want, and you'll go right to level 8 or something. And maybe they will go like, ooh, maybe you could get them to turn. But if not, I would just say leave it be. Don't force a turn and put it on a die roll. I just wouldn't. Okay, and then you have some things for success or failure for that. We get some stats and powers for the possessed aldermen if they are turned. Now, finally, we get on to Blackvine Manor itself. 3 floors, a ground floor, a second floor, and then also a cellar. They're all Dyson Logos maps, which is fine and good and dandy, and they're all well made, look good. Now we get encounters. Each turn the PCs explore the manor, there's a 1 in 6 chance of an encounter. Encounters don't happen on the same turn that the players enter an explored area where a haunting takes place. Roll 2d6 plus the number of hauntings encountered by the PCs. Roll doubles, and the Dark That Feast is also present, either attempting a deception, the abduction of Marlowe, or a PC if he isn't there, or an attack. So we get a number of these encounters. Could be that the Dark That Feast attacks. Pale, translucent figures watch from the shadows, scuttling, scratching sounds, a single high-pitched scream, the air reeks of rotten flesh, some giant centipedes, always like a good giant centipede. There might be a flock of crows inside the house. That might be a little bit weird, but just roll with it. Some cultists might be there. There might be a column of rats. The Dark That Feast might show up disguised as Marilka. And if you get more than 12, you get Lady Arabella's ghost. A tall, statuesque figure in a white nightgown, face hidden behind a featureless golden mask that rattles windows, stirs up gales, and tries to chase people away. Here's a section on the deception. Though the Dark That Feast is effectively confined to the vault beneath the manor, its powers beyond its prison are growing. It can project visions of itself in the form of others. Although there's always something wrong with the projection, it can possess creatures that have consumed its essence via the grapes of tainted wine, so you want to make sure that you're keeping track of who's drank wine or who's tasted the grapes. It can control environments tied to intense suffering or pain, and the Dark That Feast has taken to the appearing in the form of Marilka's ghost. And then we have a note here. Just remember that the goal is not to kill the PCs, but to open the vault. As a result, the Dark That Feast will never intentionally harm Marlowe O'Dane. So it's going to be keeping Marlowe safe. And you can think about at what point, if it figures out that the other PC is also a O'Dane heir or not. The cult's plan, they're watching from afar, waiting to see if Marlowe O'Dane will open the vault. The key to the cellar in the study was placed there conspicuously by Thargol. Walter Snide has filled the young man's head with talk of hidden vaults and treasures. If the PCs go to the manor alone, cultists will try to set up an ambush to drive them away or kill them, because of course they want Marlowe to open it up. It's no good if the players go and potentially muck things up, take the key, do all this other stuff. So that makes sense. If the PCs enter with Marlowe, the cultists wait for an hour to pass. Then they'll take up 8 plus the number of PCs. So they're going to get a big gang together. Dress in dark robes, use a mixture of crude weapons, torches, hunting bows, and long knives. And Thargol will also say, if he's still alive, will say a prayer over the house, whipping himself into a frenzy until he beats a nearby cultist unconscious with a ball of wine. Blood from their temple mixing with the dark red liquid, spilling onto the dirt at the mad priest's feet. That's interesting. I mean, that's a good chance the party won't actually see that, but that's a nice little touch. Hauntings. Blackvine Manor is a house of ghosts and trauma. The spirits of Lady Arabella's family and their servants remain here alongside her. When the PCs enter a new area where a haunting takes place, the events play out as described, and a random encounter is not rolled for that turn. And we have some notes about the vineyard and the crows and the flock of crows. And here, I'm not going to read through all the, I noticed we're already past the top of the hour. I'm not going to read through all the different room descriptions, but I like how they're doing it with the areas number, and we get in bold the kind of important bits about it. So we're out, so area 1 right here. So we're outside. There are broken windows. And then you get some notes. Gaze across the ruined vineyard, pools of blackness and pale stone facade from the buttresses and the gutters. Gargoyles sit frozen in endless parade of snarls. You could read this as a description, but it's also just giving you kind of notes. I still think the bolding, I would probably put some more bolding in here for different things. Maybe crawling ivy bolded, gargoyles is bolded, which I like. Roof is fallen, might be bolded. You have doors, windows, so you get more details about this stuff. Of course, as the parties investigate these areas, it gives you stuff to then give them. And then we get the different entries. Some of the areas have those hauntings. I won't read through the hauntings, but I think it's interesting that the more hauntings you get, so the more you've explored this place, the more hauntings, the more likely you're going to roll those random encounters for Lady Arabella's ghost. So it's kind of like the more you're experiencing their traumatic part, it's giving her more chance they're going to get her bit, which is obviously the antithesis of what the Dark That Feast is trying to do. Brian Smith says lots of wine themes. I don't know if I would say there's a lot of wine themes. There's certainly lots of things that are tied to the party drinking or not, the kind of cursed wine. I'm not sure what wine themes. I mean, obviously there's a vineyard and these things like that, but I'm not sure what I would say is wine theming would be. Not that there's anything, I certainly don't say there's anything negative about that. I'm just not sure, other than the location. We're not getting in a lot, and there's not much in here, and let's say going into the industry of making wines or anything. We don't see that process. We're not involved with it. It's just it's mainly in the just what a carrier of the evil, I guess, or the main carrier of the evil. There's a shield gallery. There's a great hall. There's a library. There's the secret chapel. There's an audience chamber. Oh, also a privy and a cloakroom. Nice to include the privy. Audience chamber. There's the winery. The portrait gallery. Oh, I like this picture here. Here we get another haunting. Then we get the kitchen with stairs that lead up to the servants' quarters. On the second floor, we get Marilka's bedroom, storeroom, Nasreen's bedroom, the hothouse solarium, another study, a doll room. Well, that's going to be creepy. Characters who stare through the windows of the little house must make a save or find themselves drawn inside into a simulacrum of the manor, where the corridors are too long and the doors slam shut before they can reach them. Escape takes 2d6 turns minus intelligence modifier, minimum of 1 turn. And when they emerge, they find an inch-high model of themselves in the house, face anguished, blood pouring from their mouth and eyes. To anyone watching, the person inside the house simply sits before it, unmoving, staring blankly through its window. Oh, okay. A, that's really cool. B, I have to ding it slightly. Don't just give it escape takes 2d6 turns. What do they have to do to escape? Give me something. I want to have there be something, or pitch me some ideas. Roll a few things, because that is awesome. It is super creepy. I love it. I just want more than you just escape in 2d6 turns. Like, what does that mean? Like, are they just running around and they're just 2d6 turns happen and they're just getting expelled? No, I almost want another little section with something that they have to figure out to do. And that's definitely where you can, Brian Smith had just mentioned themes in there. This is where you can add in some of those themes of what's going on in the greater house. Now you have this little dollhouse. Could be a little, even some clues. It's just, I wish they would take advantage of that a little more. I would definitely, here's another one of my DM tip number 2. I know that it might be diminishing returns, because who knows how many people are going to go to the doll room, go in the dollhouse, I'll go through the steps, but have there be something in the dollhouse, how to escape, that's tied into some things about the house. That's what I would say. Brian Smith says, so definitely play this with a couple of bottles of red on the table. Oh, yeah, absolutely. This could even go with something like, if you had a wine drinking game, I mean, I don't know, some kind of Jenga. Is there something wine themed, kind of Jenga-ish, where you could add that in there with the wine? Wine motifs. I mean, there's grapes, there's vineyards. I mean, there's all that kind of things about it. I guess if I'm thinking more on a metaphorical kind of level about wine, not so much. But yeah, there's certainly all the physical trappings of a vineyard and winery and whatnot are here. I don't know what other things about wine. It would be interesting to think about, well, what other kind of wine motifs thematically we could do, just besides the fact that here you have grapes that are corrupted and gross. Like, are there other things that could do with that? Are there other things you could maybe look at the imagery of grapes and see how you could fit that in? I'm not sure that's there, but to be honest, I'm not even sure what I would do with that. More hauntings, the master bedroom, bathroom, butler's bedroom, the cook's bedroom, nursemaid's bedroom, and then finally the wine cellar, which I think is where the secret, all the last bits are going to be. The root cellar into the desecrated chapel with some cultists, braziers, an altar, and an idol, which is a writhing, twisting mass of different materials and artistic sensibilities. Here, a realistic rendering of a beautiful human face, contorted in ecstasy. There, an abstract mound of obscene, suggestive forms. Nice. And then we get the reliquary, burned niches, empty niches. Then finally, the O'Dane family crypt, and then the Black Vault. That's where you find Lady Arabella. Removing the mask, the shadows lengthen and grow deeper. Lady Arabella's body bursts into flames. The dark that feasts is free. Hopefully you don't do that. And the dark that feasts, a huge, ill-defined mass of heads, mouths, hands, claws, and teeth writhing out of the darkness, suggests something much larger trying to push its way through from the void. Pale, rotten flesh, and the smell of corpses mixed with fresh blood and chemicals. It's got 10 hit dice, 45 hit points. It envelops. It has some immunities. It has dark sight. Let's see. What happens if you don't free him? I'm not sure. Then it has some powers. Roll a d6 each round to determine which power is used. It's got similar powers to its kind of demon spawn. Possession and holy fire, voice of the devil, a dark reading, which is that force someone to reveal some information they want to keep secret. A darkness falls, which extinguishes all non-magical light, and telekinesis. And that's the end. Really cool. The only thing I'm not sure of, what happens if you don't remove the mask? And that's the one thing I'd want to know. Opening the vault. Once the vault is open, there's nothing to stop the children of the Blessed Vine from trying to free their master. Any cultists remaining will immediately try to race up the stairs and alert their companions outside, who return in some amount of turns to try and storm the vault en masse. That's a good idea. Yeah, the only thing I'm not sure about. There are two things I'm not sure about. Well, one, I think it's a really nice adventure, interesting setup. I mean, it's not this is the most unique setup I've ever seen. No, but it's done really well, and I like the I think putting it in the vineyard with the wine, really great. I like the way the wine works. I think I'd like a little bit more detail, I think, and mechanical specifics on how the wine works, but I really like how the wine works. The layouts really is excellent. There's a few typos and things, but look, this is all done by one person, and it's put out for free. I like the Dark That Feasts is interesting. They didn't just use kind of a generic demon. It's got its own great stuff. The cultists are interesting. The creatures are interesting. All that stuff is good. I think that the two things I want to know is kind of, so the end game seems to be that you get into the vault, you take the mask off, and you fight the Dark That Feasts. And that seems to be kind of everything going down to. But I think if you're a smart party, or there's a lot of angles where you don't end up doing that, where you say, no, we're not going to, if we figure out the puzzle, and I guess I'm unsure whether the party is equipped to kind of figure all the pieces out that would prevent them from doing it. We'll see. I don't know. There's a good amount of information in place, but I don't know if you ever get that clue of, hey, don't open it, other than Lady Arabella, which you as the GM could decide to make more direct about, don't open the vault, not just kind of getting away, but that specifically. So I wonder if the party does figure it out and they take steps, either convincing, getting Marlowe away from opening it, or even if they end up fighting Marlowe and killing Marlowe, and let's say you didn't go with the family options, that once Marlowe's dead, there's nobody around to open the vault, kind of what the next step is. Like, if you don't open the vault, clearly the darkness, the demon, is still active. So you don't open the vault doesn't totally make it go away. It's kind of like a half victory, because it's still there. It's still going to be growing. The cult's still going to be active, though it's going to change the game. So I might want to know, well, if you kill Marlowe or otherwise prevent him from opening the vault one way or the other, and that's gone. That's off the table. So I guess that means you have to kill him, or he dies in some other circumstance, or something happens, whatever. Marlowe's off the board, and either the other family member is just not on the board because he didn't use that option, or whatever. Hey, the vault can't be opened. Where do you go next? I'm not expecting necessarily to have a whole other adventure of, here's what happens when it gets. But I like to know, like, well, what's the end there? Okay, the vault is sealed. Maybe even have a hint to something else. If the cult can't open the vault this way, there's another thing they can do. They could try to get a hold of a wish spell, potentially. They could try to get a hold of something like, what else is going on that they could maybe use? Because there's got to be another way around it. And then for the party, if you want to, okay, so you've stopped the power from just coming out. Great, can't come out of the vault, but you haven't prevented the cult. The cult's still there. The vines are still there. All this is still there. What could the party do next? Maybe like to know a little bit of that, because I can see some parties being like, hey, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. So sorry, Marlowe, but we got to gank you, because keeping you one person alive means that all these other people are going to die, and depending on how they've progressed with their wine sickness, if you will, if they can't be convinced not to do this and change their names and run away, maybe you just have to do it. So I'd like to know a little bit more, like, what's the expectation if this other route happens? What do you do? But that thing out of the way, I think it's really well done. I like it a lot. I think it's a lot of fun. It's not super heavy on the combat. I think depending on what you do, you might run into lots of cultists and fight them. You might not. I think there's a lot of room for wiggling around. It doesn't necessarily get into a lot of the options of what you can do, but it doesn't say specifically, hey, if they take some robes and do this, then this will happen. But I think all the pieces are there, that there are enough cultists running around that the party wanted to go undercover as cultists. The raw materials for that kind of approach are there. The adventuring, it's good. It's got, I like the fact that it has the town. It's got the one main location. It's got the exorcism is a nice thing. You have Lady Olenna, who could be after the exorcism, she might come along if you need an extra hand or you want to. That would make sense to me, that if you help her solve that issue that she's trying to do, that she might help you. I don't quite know how you might get a hold of that sword. They don't really say what if the sword does anything specific. It might be cool to have a bit about what happens if you're able to bring the sword to the vault, because that, I think, should change things and should give you an edge. But yeah, really, really great job. Thanks, Brian Smith, for pointing it out. Brian Smith says, sounds like a table of bad endings. Yeah, I'm a table, or hey, because it seems like there are definitely some, right? Hey, you could kind of partly succeed. We know what's going to happen. Okay, you fail all the way, the creature gets out. But there are a couple of states of, well, you kind of succeeded. Or at least that one state of, well, you didn't open the vault, but the cult's still around and bad things are still going to happen around here. But maybe could you burn? What happens if you keep the vault locked and then burn the place down and killed and, salt, cut down all the vines and then salt the earth so something else can grow? Would that do it? Could there be some ritual cleansing? Could there be something where you have to take Lady Olenna has to go and get something, some kind of higher ritual to permanently fix it? Like, there was really some cool things you could build off of. Might be nice just to give some of those tools to GM. But hey, I can't knock it. It seems like a really fun adventure. I'm looking forward to hear if folks end up running this, what they think about it. It's levels 2 to 4. It's completely free. Brian Smith, if you end up running this, like you said, you might. I think you're at least thinking of you might run on something for kind of Halloween. Let me know how you do. It was really fun for me to read it. If you could give a thumbs up on your way out, that would be awesome. If you feel like subscribing, that would also be awesome. Otherwise, have a great rest of your day, night, whenever you end up watching or listening to this. That's all I got, folks. Game on, and I'll talk to you later. Bye, everybody.